The market regulator SEBI got an approval for probing Adani Group up until 14th of August, an extension thereof. And this is an important story because SEBI has been asking for at least 6 months period. It wasn't granted 6 months, but it has been given further 3 months, Karthik.
That's right. Hi, good morning, Shweta. Good to see you early in the morning.
Same here.
I've got my cup of coffee. I hope you've got yours too as well. So, okay, so let's look at the timelines and how it really started. So, 26th Jan around then is when Hindenburg Research had reported on this short selling allegation against Adani Enterprises. Thereafter, the Supreme Court and SEBI got into action, and around March is when a probe was officially commissioned. So, at that time, the Supreme Court had given SEBI, the market regulator, a 2-month window to submit its report. Now, SEBI had asked for a 6-month time period, which was not granted by the Supreme Court. It wasn't outrightly denied, but that extension was not really made. So, what developed yesterday was eventually the Supreme Court putting a hard deadline of 14th August, which effectively from the month of March gives SEBI a good 5-month window to investigate, as opposed to the 6 months that it had sought earlier. Now, what are the two contentious issues being discussed right now? Number one, of course, is this Hindenburg Research alleging Adani of short selling, and that, if those allegations are true, would have had a large financial impact on millions of investors who participated in the equity trading process for the Adani Enterprises stock. So, that is the first count on which the investigation has to happen. The second count is on the MPS, the minimum public share, which for all publicly listed companies is set at 25%.
That is correct.
So, during the initial probe processes, not just by SEBI, but even all other agencies and journalists put together came out, was that at some point in the recent history, Adani had actually fallen below the 25% MPS, which meant that institutional holdings were higher than 75%. So, the public requirement of holding 25% of the stock was apparently, not being met for some time. So, that is a second debate on the question. At the same time, early this week, we also saw, this whole debate where the opposition was alleging that, according to a parliamentary standing committee, the probe by SEBI would have technically started in 2016.
That is correct.
SEBI
because
came
that is
back,
what the government said.
That's right,
in
right.
Lok Sabha.
And SEBI, yeah, so there's a little catch there. So, SEBI in fact denied, and they said, no, we have not been probing Adani since 2016. And this matter actually was pertaining to a separate GDR issue, Global Depository Receipts, which was an investigation SEBI did in 2016 on 51 publicly listed companies. Adani was not part of those 51.
Exactly.
Adani was not part of those 51 companies.
None of the Adani Group of companies was a part of that 51 group of companies.
So, I think that confusion was raised, which got cleared again yesterday, when SEBI said that the 51 companies that were under investigation on various issues in the realm of GDRs is not something that Adani was part of. So, I think this 15th August,
but it's interesting because the government came back on record and clarified on Twitter that we stand by what we said in Lok Sabha, that Adani Group was in fact being investigated. They did not clarify on what, where, who, and SEBI there saying no, we're not investigating.
The investigation in 2016 onwards was on the issue of GDR, 51 companies, Adani companies not being part of that. So, yeah, well, anyway, the long and short of that is that, 14th August is when the Supreme Court, and this of course is headed by the Chief Justice of India, Dhananjay Y. Chandrachud, who has said that show us progress by the 14th of August. You don't have a complete report, that's fine, but on the 14th of August, show us the progress you've made, and basis that we'll decide if you want to extend it maybe till 30th September or beyond, which will give SEBI the entire 6-month window. But progress is what needs to be seen by 14th of August.
Rakesh is joining us at this point. Rakesh.
Hi, Rakesh. Good morning.
Good morning, Shweta. Good morning, Karthik.
Hello, Rakesh. I think a very important story here, SEBI getting an extension. And I want to quickly read what D.Y. Chandrachud said. And he said, we are not granting an indefinite extension of time. If there is some genuine difficulty, you let us know. Essentially saying that this is the time you have, you complete the probe, you show us the result, and we'll decide thereon.
Yeah, I mean, there's another additional line there which is also equally important, which says that we don't also want a roving probe on Adani. So in that sense, I think it's heartening that we have some timelines to chase on this very, very big story which refuses to go off the headlines for the right or the wrong reasons. As Karthik mentioned, there's so much content available on this story, and every day there are charges, fresh charges, and then defense by the company. It's very, very important in the interests of corporate India, in the interests of Indian economy, and the whole world is looking at us. How do we handle this entire case? So there are two probes. One probe has been completed, which was an independent probe, again commissioned by the Supreme Court, Chief Justice. That committee has made its report to the Supreme Court in a sealed envelope, and I do see some progress on that as well. I don't remember the date. I think it's July 12 or June 12, if I got it right, when they're going to share that report with the rest of the parties involved. And then this 14th August is again some definite date in hand. And if SEBI is not able to do this work by then, they have, Supreme Court has given that little window to them, as Karthik mentioned, that they would like to do a status check. And if more time is required, and why their time is required, that needs to be probed, they can come back to Supreme Court and close it. Possibly, I would imagine that SEBI should be able to complete its work and present the report, and we have some final clarity on this one big ticket corporate in India, which showed huge promise with huge order book, a very sound business plan, but equally strong charges against them, which have, so to say, created a storm on the stock market and put a question mark on the India growth story. Because the company involved is in several sectors, essentially very, very key sectors in the infrastructure space. So heartening that we have some timelines to chase, and looking forward to some clarity on finally, if there's some wrongdoing, there should be a punishment, and if there is no wrongdoing, all the naysayers should actually rest their case. So interesting times to watch, and August 14th is the date.